session we had last week, so I'm glad to see you guys back. If this is your first time in the Dyer Center, welcome. The Dyer Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. My name is Toby Rossman. I'm the interim director of the Dyer Center, hopefully through the next year until we find a permanent director to take on that position. So the Dyer Center is all about engaging students in the opportunities for creating value in the world, right? And there's many, many different ways of doing that. And one way that we look at trying to create that value for our students as they move out into their careers is through different opportunities in the entrepreneurship space. And one of those really great ones is in real estate. And so we have our real estate advisor residence, that's Professor Rex Ahene, and putting together this informational series for us. And also walking through these different lectures or conversations that we're going to have with experts in the industry, so you can learn more about the real estate decision-making process. So, Rex, thanks for bringing folks in.
Well, thank you very much, Toby. I'm really excited to see you guys here, and I'm hoping that more students will come in. We had a very good attendance the last time we had an information session, and I see there's a lot of passion for real estate in this area. What we're doing in this series is really just a conversation, okay? And what we have here tonight is two Lafayette alums who, at some point in time, a couple of years back, relatively recently, were sitting in your space, and how they ended up being developers and investors in real estate is part of the journey that we want to talk about and share with you, okay? So the format I'm going to use is really a conversation. You know, I'm going to have some leading questions to get it started, but hopefully anytime you want to intervene and ask a question, just jump in, because this is a conversation, it's not a presentation, it's not a lecture, okay? So let me start by first introducing the two gentlemen we have here, going back to their profile, and I have some notes here that I'm going to refer to here, so I can get it right, okay? And by the way, you know, Scott, you know, is from the class of what?
85.
85, and JB Reilly is class of 83. I came to Lafayette in 82, so obviously they were my students some time ago, which is kind of funny. Okay, Scott Van Cleef really is owner and vice president of County Classics, ST Builders in New Jersey, you know, actually based in Hillsborough, New Jersey, right?
Right.
And formed a real estate company with his brother Todd, who was also a graduate of Lafayette, actually Moravian College?
No, he graduated 88. Yeah.
88 from Lafayette?
Yes.
Okay, so again, two Lafayette alums who formed this company. And for more than 34 years, been building what they call outstanding homes for deserving buyers. I took that from the website. Okay. You know, so
that sounds good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so they're building luxury homes, you know, to serve the communities that we work in. The company is currently developing multi-family apartments communities for sale communities, including affordable housing in Franktown, Montgomery, and Bridgewater, New Jersey. Okay, Scott has served on the board of directors for Fulton Builders Contractors Association of New Jersey, and is currently board of directors of New Jersey Builders Association, and over 25 years a member of the Builders 20 Group. CCST, which is the acronym for the company, has been very active in supporting Lafayette and have had a lot of Lafayette students do internships and externships working with them. Jeffrey Ramirez here, you know, just finished an internship with the company. And so that connection to Lafayette is something that we cherish very much. And this program is going to continue to build that network and use it effectively for a long time. The company has been recognized by numerous organizations for their charitable work in the communities they serve, including hosting cold food and what do you call it, toy drives.
Toy drives, yes.
In the community. So you have a company that is an investor, a developer in the community, but also serves the community beyond just building houses and creating space for them. And that's Scott Van Cleef, class of 85. Okay. To his right is JB Reilly, class of 83, president and co-founder of City Center Allentown Investment Corporation. Riley built this company also with B. Trooper.
Joe Topper?
Joe Topper Jr. in 2011.
Yep.
Right, and the company is currently developing more than $1 billion worth of traditional American homes in award-winning, you know, communities all over the country. They are focused most specifically in downtown Allentown, We are hoping that they will extend their business to Easton, because Easton is really the hip place to be these days in the Valley. So he also, co-founder and partner of Landmark Communities, a portfolio of semi-luxury apartment complexes and also Traditions of America award-winning 50-plus community development all over the place. Reilly has more than 30 years of experience in commercial and residential real estate, development and planning, urban redevelopment, property management, finance management, and law. Okay. His career includes successful development of diverse real estate assets, including apartment complexes, lifestyle communities, office towers, full-service hotel, historic renovation. So a very broad portfolio of diversified real estate investments. He serves on the board of directors of Cross America Partners, a leading U.S. distributor of branded petroleum products for motor vehicles. He's also on the board of directors for MSPEX.
MSPEX, yeah.
MSPEX, again, an engineering manufacturing company, a firm that specializes in military solutions. Okay. He served as chairman of the board of trustees for the Lehigh Valley Health Network from 2009 to 2011. Was a trustee of DeSales University during the same period. Reilly has been an active, and honored in various business and economic development charitable organizations in Allerton and Lehigh Valley for more than 30 years. Reilly, of course, is a member of the board of trustees of Lafayette. He came right home. Okay. We are really excited to have these two gentlemen here and look forward to the opportunity to learn from the experience and the expertise about investing in real estate. So my role is really very easy, because all I'm going to do is just keep the conversation going. And I'll probably ask a few leading questions to get them started. But please jump in. This is really explorational. We want you to learn a lot about real estate, learn from the experience that they have. And we're going to have these conversations over and over again. It's more or less a speaker series to delve into different aspects of real estate investments over the year. Okay. Some of the topics we're going to be talking about will include not only the development process and the planning process and scheduling of real estate investment projects, how do you recognize an investment asset? We're going to look at public-private partnerships and tax incentives in real estate, how commercial and residential, industrial, and affordable housing properties fit into the feasibility of a development plan, property management, legal interests, and actually taking care of the well-being of stakeholders and clients in your development process. So topics that will be thematic, focus on learning, teaching you a lot about the industry and how you can actually participate. That's all. So let me start by asking them to basically say a little bit about how they got started in the real estate business in the first place. So, any one of you can actually get started on that.
Sure, Rex. My summers were spent in high school and college working on construction sites. I did the internships with banking and insurance during college. I found out very early that I wasn't really interested in being in an office every day. Graduated from school, worked for an insurance company for a short period of time. The first developers I worked for was quite a mix. It was my father, who's a civil engineer. It was a real estate attorney. It was a Dunkin' Donuts franchise owner, a landscape contracting company owner, and a title insurance company owner. And what happened in the early 1980s, there was some tax benefits to form partnerships and build income-producing properties. So I got started where they had an opportunity building a 50,000 square foot retail center in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. And I was going to work underneath experienced project manager. I said, this is a great opportunity. I love being around construction sites, and I'll learn from this person. Well, they started the project, and unfortunately, the project manager had personal issues, and he went into rehab. And all of a sudden, I became the head project manager. And I will say there's a benefit to that. I will say that if I'm having a bad day today, I just look back to 30-some years ago, and it was not as bad as the days I had trying to learn on the job about real estate development. But I think that's real estate development, you learn something every day. There is not a day goes by that the situation arises that you come to deal with. Well, I knew right away I needed to get more experience, and I went to NYU. They had I got a master's degree in real estate development and finance. Back in the day, there really wasn't a lot of real estate programs. Now today, you can, just in the state of New Jersey, there's Rutgers, there's Monmouth University, there's, I think Rowan's doing stuff now. There's so many colleges that you can go to and get a master's in real estate development finance. I did that, and one of the best things about it was not only did you have professors who were in the academic part, but you had professors who were in the private sector. So you actually were taught by real estate developers, real estate attorneys. I walked away from that with something my brother and I always say today is always know the worst case scenario and how you're going to get out of it. Because there's a lot of risk in what we do, we'll talk about risk. But walked away, that's always something that we try to follow. I'm not sure we do all the time. Fast forward a couple of years, I'm doing some commercial, my brother graduates, and we had a family piece of property, residential. He and I and my father was a civil engineer. I would say dabbles in real estate, but he became almost our financial partner in it. My brother was taught by a custom home builder, and I was still doing some commercial. As we'll find out in the discussion tonight, so much about real estate is timing. We started a company late 1988. There was a stock market crash in '87, which was a big economic issue. The real estate waited until about 1989-90 to tank. So our company started, we sold 2 houses in '89. We sold 9 houses in 1990 and 10 houses in 1991. Well, and I'm not sure how much in history they get into, but the Persian Gulf War happens. Persian Gulf War ends, and all of a sudden people were confident and people wanted to buy real estate again. And in 1992, we sold 42 homes. And that's really when the company grew. We went from 5-7 people, as much as 38 people at one time. We were a company that built single-family homes, did light commercial, we did retail shopping centers, we did office condos for doctors. Our next decade, we got into multifamily. We, in fact, built the Morgan Hill Golf Club here in Williams Township, and we did condominiums, townhouses. The next really major point of our company, I would say, was in 2005-06. Again, the real estate market was crazy. And I think you talk to most developers, when it's crazy, it can be good, but probably slow and steady is the better you like it. So we had a crazy period of time there. The market collapsed on us, and my brother and I looked at each other because in the early 2000s, every doctor and professional in the world wanted to own their real estate, so we sold off our office condos. We didn't have a rental producing income coming in, and we were faced with, we were okay, we were not over debt, we were well capitalized, but our focus changed in our third decade of business to finding rental properties, and we started building apartments. And we've built apartments ever since 2015. We're going to do active adult single family. So our company has progressed. It's I think there's cycles in real estate, there's cycles in a company's life, and we still continue to build single families. We still continue to do some late commercial, but we've grown our portfolio, and today we continue to build, and we look forward to building in the years to come.
So Scott, what was your major?
It was economics. In fact, I took Economics 11, Intermediate Microeconomic Theory, with Rexford A. Ahene in the spring of 1983. So,
well, thank you for reminding me how old I am.
I can't remember exactly what year you came, but I think the course is at Lafayette. It wasn't just economics, right? If you're going to do real estate, you have to know finance. It's part of, and JB, I don't think in your company, you're a specialist so much, you're a generalist, but you're the ones making the final decision about acquisition, when you negotiate. You're the ones making a lot of those decisions. So I'm not a financial expert by any means. We have a chief financial officer. But I think one of the things I loved about Lafayette, too, liberal arts, was the history classes or the conflict classes. It raised a lot of questions. You asked a lot of questions, and if you're going to be in real estate, you should really should always be willing to listen rather than speak. And there's so many people with knowledge out there that sit back, listen what they have to say, and you'll learn a lot. I think part of Lafayette is that diversified education that you get here.
Well, we emphasize the liberal arts education, problem-solving skills as part of the core of the educational program here. And the reason why I asked that question is because you can get into real estate from so many different disciplinary backgrounds. You don't have to be an economist or a finance expert to get into real estate. And the journey getting to where he is right now is something that encourages him to build the capacity and acquire the skills necessary along the way to get to where he is right now. JB?
Yeah. Before I tell you my background, what's everybody's major?
Right.
I'm an econ major. Martha,
Bio. Bio.
Bio?
Bio.
Bio?
International affairs.
Music and econ.
Computer science.
Economics.
Economics and sociology.
Anthropology and sociology.
Civil engineering. Film and media.
All right.
Great. It's great, and it's great to see the diverse background. Well, first of all, I was an economics major as well. Back then, it was economics and business, and I graduated in '83 and got a job with an accounting firm called Arthur Andersen, which was, they called it the Big 8 accounting firms back then, and I did like audits. I'd go out to companies and be part of teams that would audit businesses. And I got interested in real estate because I was working on auditing real estate companies back in the mid-'80s, same time Scott was talking about. There were crazy tax laws back then, and they incented, development. And, a developer like me would go out and get 10 doctors, and they would invest in a project, and they'd get all these great tax benefits right away. And that ultimately blew up in the late 80s. But anyway, that's how I got interested in real estate. And then after 1 year, I got my CPA, I went back to law school. And while I was in law school, I started, from scratch with a partner, a guy that I met at Arthur Andersen in accounting. And so we started our business in 1985 while I was in law school. When I got out of law school, my buddy, he left his job at Arthur Andersen. We started our real estate development business. And I had a little bit of a similar experience that Scott had. We had done, kind of income-producing property investments. Like we're investing in little smaller things like 2 6-unit buildings, and then we ended up getting a piece of ground, and we were going to go and build our first apartment complex. And this is in 1989. And we got a kind of an investor from New York, so we had financing put together. We were good with numbers, because we were both accountants, and I had the law background, so we were kind of good with paper and stuff. And we went out and we tried to go out and find a contractor to build this apartment complex. It was 136 apartments. So a pretty big project. I was 26 years old. We couldn't find any contractor that would give us a price that we thought was where the market was. I don't know. And so we said, screw it, we'll become the contractor. And so we, my father sold insurance. I didn't know a hammer from, a screwdriver. And, but we went out there and we started this business and hired a superintendent, and we ended up building that project out in like record time. In 18 months, had it fully leased, and then that gave us a jump start to get into larger projects, which we continued after that. And now I'm involved in a fairly significant project. I don't know, is anybody familiar with that, what's going on in Allentown, downtown Allentown? There's the PPL Center, and around that center that was built about 5 or 6 years ago, there's a lot of office buildings and apartment buildings and stuff. Most of that is my company. And it's a really interesting project because, it's everything I learned for the last 30 or 35 years at Lafayette and at Arthur Andersen, and then all my various experiences is kind of like, I'm like drawing on all of that knowledge now. And we have what I'll say a vertically integrated company where we buy the land, we get it, we do all the design in-house. Now we work with architects and contractors, but we have a design team. We manage the construction of the projects. We lease up the buildings, whether it's office buildings or apartments. We do all the design work, all the marketing work, the financing. So we have all this, and I share that with you because the people that I work with every day have a very diverse set of backgrounds. We have people that are, we have designers, we have artists, we have creative people, we have finance people, we have engineers, we have people with architectural background. We have salespeople. And so it's a field that, brings in all kinds of, different disciplines. And I think the successful developers, know how to blend, creativity with numbers and design. And, there's just so many ways to be part of the real estate industry. The real estate industry is a huge industry in the United States. And, and from civil engineers to, lawyers to accountants to, you name it, we're working with them. And so it's very exciting, and I'm, really interested in hopefully could have some feedback on some questions you guys might have about like what you're interested in and what we might think are the opportunities or in the real estate field for you.
Thank you very much. That's quite an introduction right there. Both of you got into the business trial by fire, basically doing it yourself and learning on the job as you went along. But also in the process pointed out that when the economy turns downhill, there might be some risk in real estate. But during the same period, there are opportunities to acquire real estate. So the focus tonight is really looking at the risk and opportunity in real estate. And I know if you look at what is happening in the U.S. economy today, to say that a lot of things have changed is really an understatement. I mean, we have an economy that's so volatile right now. Most people assume or believe, actually, the data seem to indicate we are in a recession, even though the politicians are not going to say that. And given that downturn, obviously, investors are hedging both ways, with respect to the downturn and also the opportunities that it creates for them. So the question I want to throw to these two gentlemen is that given the outlook today, what types of risk are you most concerned about? And how do you evaluate risk and the opportunities in the primary type of real estate that you invest in your core business? Given the outlook right now, there might be some opportunities, there may be some risk as well. So how do you define those? How do you evaluate them? And what are you most concerned about from a real estate investor's point of view?
Well, I've been, like Scott, have been through a bunch of cycles. The S&L cycle, when all the S&L savings and loans defaulted, which was 1988, 89, dot-com bubble, and then the Great Recession, 2006, 7, 8, 9, whatever period, and now COVID, and we're going to be in another recession. And in every one of those periods, our company looks at that as an opportunity, because if you're well capitalized and and we've never had a problem, knock on wood, that because we were always well capitalized. And when I say well capitalized, means we didn't have too much debt, and so we were always able to weather the storms. And because we were in a relatively strong position, we were able to take advantage of opportunities. So I like a downturn because I think it shakes out bad operators, and it creates opportunities for strong, well-capitalized operators. And in our approach to any project is always to, first of all, be comfortable with that there's a demand for what you're building. If you're building housing or a hotel or office, whatever it happens to be, you have to do basic due diligence around the demand for what you want to build. And then you need to be able to assess the risks and then figure out how you mitigate the risks. Sometimes risks can be, volatility and, interest rates. There's a lot of risk today that we're both seeing, Scott enters a contract to sell somebody a house, and then halfway through the contract, he's still buying out the materials to build the house, and the costs go up, and that's a risk. So you need to understand what your risks are, and then you need to understand how you want to mitigate those risks. But I think that we're going to have a recession. I think that you're going to see interest rates, you're going to see interest rates at as high of a level as when we started our business. When we started our businesses, the prime rate was 8.5%, 10% back in the 1988 or 89. It's gone all the way down to, almost nothing, and now it's going back up. And for 30-some years, if you go and look at the most, the bellwether interest rate that drives the stock, that drives capital, the capital cost is the 10-year Treasury rate. The 10-year Treasury rate, since when I started in business, went like this for 30-some years, and now it's going like this. And so I think there's a lot of people that are in the real estate business right now that never experienced high interest rates and never experienced an environment of a rising interest rate environment. And so what I think is going to happen over the next 3 or 4 years, especially if rates kind of stay higher, and I think they will, is that if you own, let's just let's say you bought or built an apartment complex 2 years ago, and you have a 4% mortgage rate, okay, and everything's going really well, and you have a 7-year loan or 10-year loan, and then after 7 years you have to go and refinance that loan. Well, if your income is working nicely with a 4% interest mortgage payment, right? The mortgage payment based on 4%, and then all of a sudden you have to refinance at 7%. You may be in a little bit of a problem when you go to refinance. And I think that the banks are getting very conservative right now, and I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities over the next couple of years where people are financing out of projects that at higher rates that they can't support. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I agree with JB that a time of economic distress is an opportunity in real estate. And I think when you don't go away from your core, though, I guess there's opportunities, but it's location, location, location. It's what have you built in the past? Do you know your market? I think those are opportunities that you can take care of in this market. The risk, I think it's when interest rates jump, and when you start watching the national news or on your phone, and the lead is uncertainty. It's rates are going up. What's going to happen if it's in Ukraine? It's uncertainty in real estate shuts things down, and it starts with buyers, and we've seen it already. And I think JB was pointing out something where we actually faced where we were building some houses in early January. Well, in my mind, I knew the market was going to change, but I also at the same time, I was still trying to lock in my costs, and I didn't. So I kept putting on the market because I couldn't get people to lock me on certain costs. Well, in this case, I waited a little too long, and there was 2 homes that we still have been ready for 90 days, all finished, right? And in a market we were in 6 months ago, the price sold like that. Things can change that quickly, where my drive up here was on the phone negotiating a deal that I'm going to make less money on, but part of it is moving your assets. If you're going to be able to reinvest or have money and having cash flow, sometimes you make less money for the next deal in front of you. So it's all, we've been through downturns. I think, as I said before, every downturn has its nuances, how things are going to turn out. And if you want to learn about real estate, you can start today and be learning 40 years from now.
So you raised a couple of points that I think we want to explore a little further. That the ups and downs in the economy provides both opportunity and risk. Talk about cost of borrowing, interest rates going up, but also cost of raw materials and building materials are going to go up. At the same time, the rising cost is going to depress demand, affordability, so the potential for rental income, cash flow to dry up is also an issue that you have to deal with. You have to figure out a way to balance both in terms of your development opportunities, as well as your income and cash flow opportunities from the properties that you're already managing. So that brings in the role of due diligence. I don't know if everybody knows what due diligence is, so if you can actually define it a little broadly, and also explain what role that plays in the decision-making process when you're looking at these risks and opportunities at the same time.
Well,
Scott,
yeah, go ahead.
Scott.
I think due diligence is about investigations and sitting, and we do a lot what JB does, where we buy properties that is called raw land. There's, and there may be something on it that we're going to knock down, but we take it through the approval process, then we do the improvements, or the roads and the infrastructure to build, and then we finally start building what we're going to build. In due diligence, you want to, it may be environmental due diligence, it may be you're spending time on the market, you're going to examine, as JB says, if I'm doing an apartment building, is there, you want to know what the market is. Is there, what's the absorption, how much new inventory is coming on. You spend time with a township planner, perhaps even meet with a mayor if it's a large enough project. You want to explore every corner of this piece of property you're going to buy. And I think people get into trouble where sometimes they fall in love with a piece of property, and all of a sudden it's, it's okay. It's, we can make it work because this is a strength. And in due diligence, you really need to go from A to Z, cover all your bases, and walk away feeling comfortable that your vision of what you're going to do with this particular piece of property will work.
JB?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things just to add to that. We're looking at a lot of new projects now, and this economic kind of cycle we have in here, we're going to come out of. Rates will come back down to some level, probably not where they were before. One of the things that we spend a lot of time is trying to understand macro trends, macroeconomic trends. If you're doing housing, are you in a market that's growing? Are what demographic is growing? If we're building apartments and our average age of a resident is 32 years of age, well, if I'm going to plan a project and it's like I'll give you a great example. Right downtown in Easton, where the Crayola is?
Yeah.
Right behind Crayola, there's a parking deck. So we're buying that parking deck, and we're going to knock it down, and we're going to build 272 apartments on it with residential on the bottom, and we're going to actually embed 300 parking spaces into the thing. It's going to have a cool rooftop deck. It's going to have a pool, on the 5th floor. We're going to call it the Marquee. It's approved.
You mean Marquis de Lafayette?
Marquis de Lafayette.
I just want to put that in.
So that's probably, that's one of the biggest things we're looking at doing right now. It's an $80 million project, okay? And yeah.
Who did you have to talk to do that? Correct me if I'm wrong, when you say there's Crayola, there's two parking spots. There's the one by, the bus terminal, where
right,
you get the buses. Because I saw something where, I guess that large plot of land, but then there's also the other parking lot. So in terms of saying who do you talk to, you know, did you just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy this, or like, did you have to talk to someone specifically,
Well,
like,
well,
oh,
what-
I would like to buy this?
Well, what happened is, we were looking at, so my company does urban development. So we've been doing this project in Allentown, done a lot of stuff in Allentown. And you know, we're kind of thinking like, you know, we should try to do this somewhere else. Because we've had a lot of success. We've done 1,500 apartments in Allentown the last 7 years, and other stuff. And so we started looking at Easton. And so 3 years ago, Easton put out for bid, they advertised it for bid, the site that's all the way at the end on 3rd, across from the McDonald's on the
Right.
corner.
That's the open space. It's-
So we put in a proposal for that. We got rejected. And the reason we got rejected is because we put a proposal in to do primarily just apartments. And they ideally wanted to see like another hotel or a mixed use of apartments and something else. And I was too honest, because I went to the committee, we put our proposal in, and I said, you know, this is what we think is feasible here. And we have a lot of experience with building hotels and building office towers, and we don't think that's feasible here. The other person put their offer in, and they gave the city exactly what they wanted, is here. You know, office, hotel, residential. 3 years later, that project hasn't even started, and they're probably going to go back into the city and ask them to do the same thing we asked to do. But it worked out well for us, because the city then decided to put their parking deck up for sale, to have that redeveloped. And so we went back in with a similar proposal, some retail, lots of apartments, and some parking. And the city selected us, so that's how we got that project. And now we have flexibility when we can start it. We can start it next summer if we want. But the thing that we're trying to understand right now is costs have gone way up, rents have gone way up, which is good. Our interest rate has doubled since a year ago. And so we're trying to project, you know, what is the income from this property going to look like, you know, 2 years from now? You know, and part of the reason is that you know, these high interest rates now are slowing other developers down. So there's less supply of new homes, apartments, single-family houses coming onto the market. So in the long run, it's going to be inflationary, because there's going to be more demand and less supply. So when I get back to the macro issue, the Lehigh Valley, which, you know, we're part of here in Easton, is growing pretty rapidly on a relative basis. It's one of the highest growth areas in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. And part of that is that there's a constant push from New York and New Jersey for a variety of reasons: cost, taxes, quality of life. And the housing stock in the Lehigh Valley isn't growing nearly as fast as the population. So we're very bullish about the macro factors in this market. We're renting 15 to 20 apartments a month in Allentown. We're building like 500 apartments right now in different buildings. So we're seeing this demand. We're seeing this imbalance between high demand and limited supply. So, but anyway, to make a long story short, we're doing our due diligence around our cost, our interest rates, you know, the economic demand, where we project rents to be, and then you know, ultimately deciding when we're going to move forward.
Hi again. Another question I have is, so Lafayette is a community on a hill, right? And then you go downtown, and downtown is awesome. But then when you reach the parking deck, or I guess now it's something going to be totally different, but also where the McDonald's is, if you go up, it's like a totally different economic situation. It's almost like a different area. So I guess my question is, in real estate, or I guess with you two, what you have seen is like, I guess, how do you market to, I guess, those communities as well, right? How do you draw in, I guess, those urbanized areas to I guess want to live there as well? Because a lot of pushback will come from the people. It's like we see the same thing like in New York, where it's like this idea of pushback from the people. How do you combat that, work with that, or use that to your advantage?
Right. Markets go through cycles,
Yeah.
right? And what we're talking about is the due diligence that you need to actually understand the market you're going into, what the consumer wants, and providing a product that will suit that particular market at that time. The class that I'm going to teach on real estate investment feasibility analysis will be taking all that information in processing that process to determine whether the project that you want to invest in is feasible and profitable or not, given its location or the attributes that you need to take into consideration. JB was talking about the demographic patterns, supply and demand for the kind of space or real estate that you're trying to develop, fit in the market. So the neighborhood is going to demand a product. And if you can site that product in that neighborhood, then you have a compatibility between the needs of the community and the development that's coming into place.
Thank you.
So the timing, the product, packaging, is all part of the market for real estate at that time. All right. So the question of due diligence is very important because it brings in a number of risks that you have to take into consideration.
I was saying,
Right.
so I know there's a civil engineer in the audience, right? You civil?
Yeah.
Right.
So, a good civil engineer is going to, kind of try to, put, look from the perspective of the developer, which is the client, right? How do I protect, in this part of the project, the due diligence phase, the investigation phase, trying to figure out, is this project something that is worth doing? Good, whether you're a lawyer or an accountant or a civil engineer, the more you know about, understand the bigger picture, the more effective you can be in supporting that, client, and understanding, how to, what are the risks, how do we investigate the risks, how do we get comfortable they're a risk worth taking, or how do we quantify the cost of fixing the problem? And there's a million things in the civil engineering, way, like this project down in Easton. I mean, we got issues coming out our ears. We have to, extend utilities, reroute utility lines under the garage. A lot of test boring because the foundations are going to be very significant. So they're going to be heavy weight bearing foundations. We're going to need to do pilings into the ground, and there's just so many factors. And then all the zoning factors as well. Are there things that we're assuming we can do that are allowed under the zoning code? So that's part of your due diligence as well. The due diligence is vast, and so.
So due diligence is doing your research. And the kind of risk you're looking at is not just a macroeconomic risk, but also the borrowing cost or leverage risk, the risk of having enough tenants and rentals that are going to generate the cash flow, and whether that's sustainable, and unforeseen, unexpected contingencies that you can even plan for. You need to take all of that into consideration as part of your due diligence before you can decide whether a project is going to go or not. And we're talking business now, but actually, I had a question from a student, which I'm going to direct to you guys, because he said there are different classifications of real estate that we can get into. Small scale, multifamily, mixed use, medical, facilities, warehouses. All these are different types of real estate. When you started basically from a family point of view, basically you and your brother, and you and a partner. So what role do family play in generating risk and opportunities for you as a developer? You and your brother and your father.
It's, I think there's so many pluses to work with your brother. It's somebody you trust. You probably have more disagreements that you voice, but at the end of the day, if you're a Giants, Rangers, Mets fan, you walk away from that, and if you have your nieces or your godchild and you learn to work together. But I think it's not only family, it's the team. I mean, we have 9 people have worked with us 20 or more years, and they become like family. And in real estate, like JB was saying, there's different personalities. There is the clash between your salespeople, which are just, I'm going to sell this is easy, I'm going to get this done, don't care about any of the details. And your construction manager is, what are you selling? We can't do that. So you have this clash of personalities. But I think it makes a strong company is when you do have a diverse, you have a lot of type A people in real estate that want to take ownership, and they love what they do, and they have a passion for it. And it really shows if you're going to do, and you know, what JB did out in Allentown, it shows passion. It's not an easy road to get to, but I would say family has a lot of pluses to it, and the people you work with become your family, because it's not as, you don't do the same thing every day. It's not you go in, you log on your computer, and you're tracking, you know, sales for companies, or you are facing obstacles or putting out fires. And I don't care how well run your company is in real estate, you will still have fires to put out. But if you have the right people to do it, you'll get it done.
What about JB?
Well, you know, one of the things I think, you know, we're talking about implied in talking about real estate is entrepreneurship.
Correct.
At least the kind of real estate that we are, you know, we have businesses we started. And around like risk, when I was starting, you know, I had nothing, so I had nothing to lose, so I was willing to take a lot of risk. You know, I wasn't married, I didn't have a family, I didn't have a mortgage, you know, I was taking the bus back and forth to law school to start this, you know, business, and so, you know, I think that a lot of people that get into real estate as a developer, you know, are very entrepreneuristic, and you know, what does that, you know, kind of mean? And not everybody is kind of wired for that. Although there's lots of ways you can, you know, participate in real estate, you know, in you know, if you have less risk tolerance, you could maybe be as, you know, you're as an engineer or accountant or a lawyer or you know, whatever. But like from my standpoint, I'm a developer, so I take risk. I try to take measured risk on everything I'm doing, and so. You know, it's identifying what your risks are, doing the due diligence, mitigating your risk, and then making a decision to move forward or not. And it's that same thought process over and over again on different projects.
Look, oh yeah, sure, go ahead.
Hello, thank you guys for coming. It seems like risk seems to be the topic of conversation today. And we talk about how risk leads to opportunity, but I also think it can lead to failure. I'm very curious to know how you guys, both of you or any of you guys, have experienced failure, and if so, how did you guys overcome that obstacle, especially with creating your own company?
Good question.
For us, not every project you do or every parcel you do works out. And we had a situation where in Westville, New Jersey, a very desirable place to build. We were going to tear down an old dilapidated building and put up 8 age-restricted townhouses. Shame on us because we needed, and you learn real estate, shame on us because I needed a use variance. A use variance means I get incentive. I couldn't build a multifamily. I could only build a single family. But we were pretty confident because of what was around it that you could do it. So we spent all the money in the world with civil engineers and lawyers, and you spend months and months working on it, and it seemed like it was going the right way, but it was during an election season, and the mayor started getting pushback from some of the residents who really weren't directly affected, but they thought they were going to be very affected, and turns out we got denied. Well, that is you spend so much time and effort with it, but you can't dwell on the losses, because if you think every one of your projects in real estate is going to pencil out the way you think it is, it doesn't. So I think you do have to realize, I think in due diligence, if you can do a good enough job, eliminate some of that, but you learn lessons. And there's been other jobs where we've spent a lot of time and under contract, but we didn't proceed because had to spend money. But if you know it's not going to work out, you won't have a failure at the end. You'd rather walk away in the beginning.
Cut your losses.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, you know, I've made a gazillion mistakes, and, you know, we've had our, you know, failures. We've never had a fatal failure. But, you know, you need to take chances, and there's a lot of things, you know, you need to be very, you know, to be a real estate developer, you need to be very persistent. You need to be able to, you know, understand risk and be disciplined, but you have to be, I think, a glasses half full person. Otherwise, it would drive you crazy. You know, and so, you know, you spend money chasing after your time and money going after projects that that you end up walking away from. You know, we haven't had any projects where we actually built and they were, you know, we've had some that, you know, certainly not, you know, we've had our shares of unsuccessful projects, but generally we're able to get our money out of the unsuccessful projects. But you know, you need to take risks, you need to take chances, and if you're not making mistakes, you're not being innovative, you're not really, you know, stretching. But you know, the secret is, you know, don't make that fatal mistake that knocks you out of the game. And you know, and I think that being in the business now, I hate to say it, like 35 years. You know, you know, your experience that you know, every time you know, if you can go through life and never make the same mistake twice, you're going to be hugely successful. Okay, if you go through life and don't make the same mistake twice, you are going to be hugely successful.
Yep.
And that's what we try to do is, you know, try not to make the same mistake twice.
I agree with JB, like being optimistic and glass half full. You will find my wife every so often going, how can you even be happy with that right now? And I go, well, it's not going to destroy us. You know, sometimes it's true, it'll make you stronger. And as JB said, you've done it long enough and you haven't had that fatal project. But in real estate, you can do a lot of things right and risk-wise do it right. But if the timing, the market hits you at the wrong point and you're overextended with too much debt and you bought that last piece of property, and I will say some of the best deals you do are the ones you don't do. And that was us in a number of instances. We would have bought property that in 2006, that in 2008 was probably worth 25% of that value. But didn't happen. It was dumb luck too, because we would have bought it. But the guy had a guy who was willing to pay more than us for it. So sometimes it's dumb luck.
Well, I have two questions over here.
Both of you individually mentioned building, but I remember both of you guys are economics majors. So I'm just a little confused on what do you mean in terms of building? Like, how do you help out? Because when I think of building, I just think of engineers and construction. So how do you help out in the building process? Does that make sense?
How do you become a developer, you know, from an economist?
Well, you know, I mean, I think we're both builders. You know, so I guess in the like industry language, I don't know. You know, this is how I would. You know, a developer is, you know, someone that an individual or a company that, you know, kind of has a, you know, is working with a broader plan. What's that?
Entrepreneur.
An entrepreneur working with a broad, with orchestrating and putting together a project, and they may or may not build the project. They may buy the land, entitle it, design it, and you know, when you talk about builders, a builder, you know, is generally someone that's actually constructing the structure. Now, in our company, you know, we're developers. We oversee the construction. We're very hands-on in the construction. Then we ultimately own and manage and operate our properties, if they're income-producing properties, which is what we do. So we know the intricacies of building it. Even if we're using a general contractor, we've done building. We know building. We know how. We know how to price it, design it. But we're all using professionals. We're all using engineers. We're all using architects. We're all using, different skill sets, and to kind of pull it all together. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. He started as a project manager, but he wasn't a builder. He wasn't an architect. He wasn't an engineer. But he needed to bring the expertise necessary at the right time to put the product together. So you hire engineers and architects to design the project. You hire a project manager who's a builder, civil engineer, to oversee the construction. You bring in, interior decorators, to do the interior decoration, and in the end you have a product ready to lease. And you manage the lease, the legal, the agreements and everything else. Oversee the operation and management and maintenance of the property over time, and you become basically a firm that delivers real estate space for consumers, where you bring all the expertise in.
The way our company works works well for my brother and I. He does more of the field. He's out in the field, and when we're putting in infrastructure, we're building roads, he's overseeing that. We also have our own in-house construction managers or project managers. So our people we consider like the builders. These are the guys who actually take it from foundations all the way up to a 4-story, 5-story apartment building. Other parts of the country, if you work someplace else, there's people who are developers, but are just land developers. They will never build. They'll get approvals, as JB was saying. They'll put the roads in, but they'll never build anything. They supply the building lots to builders. So you go across the country, it's different. I think in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, it's more people like JB and I who take it all the way.
All the way to the top. You had a question?
So being a developer and being in real estate, what are some traits that you think there are must-haves if you're going to be successful? Like some traits that are like non-negotiable. You must either have grit, patience. Like what are some traits that you've seen in your field as like if you don't have these common traits, you're not going to survive in the industry?
Well, I think you have to be, analytical. You have to be able to think and reason through, situations, because usually you're dealing with some kind of complex situations that have multidiscipline. We talked a lot about due diligence. The due diligence on this project, we have down here in Easton goes everything from engineering issues to marketing issues to financing issues, and so you need to be kind of analytical and thoughtful. I don't care what field you go into, the harder you work, the better you're going to do. So, you need to be ambitious. You need to be a good communicator. If you're managing a project, it means you're working with lots of different people. You need to have good, writing skills. You need to have good verbal skills. You need to be a good communicator. I think almost in any industry, to be a successful manager, you need to be a good communicator. And I do think that, to get into any field, you've got to have some technical skill. Now, can you learn something on the job? You want to rent apartments? I can teach you how to, but if you want to be a developer or a builder, or a financier, there's obviously, having some technical background, and I think Professor Ahene's, class is kind of geared to get students, familiar and knowledgeable about some of those technical skills. You can't fake your way through it. You can't just show up and say, oh, I'm gonna, if you want to like come to my company, we'd want you to have a certain amount of technical skills, and we would round those out. But there's lots of different ways, lots of different angles. It could be engineering skills, it could be architectural skills, it could be accounting skills, it could be financing skills.
Data analytics, software development.
I mean, I've got a parking thing. We have 4,500 parking spaces down in Allentown. I was telling Professor Ahene the other day about it. And we're trying to figure out, like, it's a combination of parking that we own, and some of it we have a long-term lease with the parking authority, but we effectively control it. And the analytics and we have our residents parking at night, and during the day we have office workers there, and on the weekend we have somebody going to a hockey game parking there, and trying to manage the capacity and the billing and and it's real estate, but it's basic data analytics. Good organizational skills, and I think that, the education you're getting here gives you all that stuff, but I would argue that you got to also drill down in some areas. You can't just come out here with just, you've got to have some focus, some core focus in some area that somebody like us is going to say, boy, that's valuable to me. Because you can train somebody to a certain degree, but you want to know that somebody's coming into your office that has, at least a good foothold into some discipline that's important to the job that they're going to be doing. And I think that's what I like, and I've been, working and helping the Dyer Center and Professor Ahene in the real estate competitions and this particular thing for a couple of years now, for several years now. And so I love the program, because I think that there's a lot of practical stuff when you have people like us that have been in the business for 35 years, and we talk about our experiences and what you need to know. That was a great question. I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, that's a very good question, because we pointed out that real estate is very interdisciplinary. We have to have some core competence or skill that you bring to the table to be part of the team. And a lot of times, the reason why we say you can get into the business from any disciplinary background is because the disciplines that we have at Lafayette all contribute to solving the real estate problem. Civil engineering, architecture, art, social A&S, political science and legal, and the entitlements aspect, all these pieces come together. So a real estate firm is going to draw you in based upon your core competencies that they need. And in the process, you learn about all the other related disciplines that come together to make a successful project. So that's basically what he's saying. And that brings me to another question before we open it up for general questions. We know that everybody is now very conscious about sustainability, green net neutral environment. This is coming into play in United Nations as the Sustainable Development Goals number 11, which is smart cities and sustainable cities. So as a developer contributing to real estate space, you have to be aware of the trend and also the need in your design and the delivery of the product that will be basically acceptable given the market that you're trying to get into. How do you build sustainability into your development projects? And what are some of the technologies that you are applying right now that will resonate with the disciplines and the skills that we just pointed out may be needed to participate in real estate?
I think if you build in the Northeast, in New Jersey, PA, there's already a lot of regulations or new regulations that the Department of Environmental Protection is bringing out. And I'll start with stormwater, right? When we see rainwater come down, and how do you recharge that into the ground? You don't want it going into the river and having rivers rise right away. You do bit of ground. And we utilize rain garden. Civil engineers design certain green infrastructure. And I think when we did 115 apartments we built, part of what we had to do as our application, planning application, was almost a lead checklist, which is what are you doing in the project? And it's energy efficient appliances, it's water saving devices, it's your lighting systems. I think everybody wants to go that route, right? It's the right thing to do. I think the issue you have maybe on a for sale market is people like the idea of building green. They don't like the idea of paying more to build green. And if you can prove to them that, if you say to them, well, you put this money and you'll get it paid back in 12 years, well, I'm going to live here 7 years. And I'm not, so there's this balance. And I think some of it too is the technology you see on paper, and practicality-wise and installation-wise, may not actually work as well as does on paper. So this is balancing act. I think as developers, and you do it for a long time, you do, global warming. I think you realize there's certain societal aspects that it's social, economic, environmental. I think when we go in, we clean up a site and we take PCBs out of the ground, or we take old materials out of the ground, it's beneficial to us, it's beneficial to the earth. And I do really think that a lot of developers are in it, of course we're in it to make money, it's going to be profitable. At the same time, if you can have a positive impact, that's what you like to do.
And moral and ethical responsibility. JB?
Yeah, no, I think Scott's exactly right. I think that in terms of a lot of the building materials and systems we're using, whether we're building an office building or an apartment building, a lot of it's regulated now. The efficiency levels of, of mechanical equipment and appliances and all that stuff. We do some green roofs and things like that because, frankly, we have to. It's for stormwater. All of our buildings have grass roofs on them, and frankly, it's because that's just that's the best way for us to do that. I do think, I think a lot about these issues. At the end of the day, most businesses and most individuals are not willing to pay extra for sustainability, for environmental sustainability. That's the real world. Now, maybe in New York, there was a new building built today, just opened in Hudson Yards today. That's got all kinds of green stuff in there because it's a headquarter building for XYZ companies, and they're getting pressure, to be green from the ESG mandates by their investors, and because but I'm in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Now we have some headquarters in downtown, but most of it's, we have Morgan Stanley, we have Merrill Lynch, we've got Truist Bank, we've got the big hospitals, we've got big companies. But I can tell you, because I negotiated with all those companies, they want to get high quality space at a low price, at the lowest price they can get. And they really don't want, and frankly, they really don't ask a lot about the green attributes of our buildings. And on the residential side, the biggest problem we have, in most markets is affordability. And I don't care if you're making $40,000 a year or $80,000 a year or $200,000 a year, affordability is a big concern. And so, being able to afford a roof over your head is that's what people are looking at. Do they want, if I had to charge somebody $200 more a month rent because we've got this, solar fields on top of the roof and we're, carbon neutral, they'd move out, they'd go to the next complex down the street. And so that's the real world. When I think about sustainability and I think about what's going on in the market, I'm thinking about how's my product gonna be current and sustain itself in the future from a design standpoint. And what are those things that we have to put in our office buildings and our apartment buildings to make them sustainable from a marketability standpoint? And so when you think about what's happened the last couple of years with people working remotely, and we do, we do urban projects, urban apartment buildings. So, we have a lot of amenities in the buildings. And so we spend, we've done a lot of work and a lot of research and a lot of, we understand the market because we've built so many buildings over the last 7 or 8 years in this particular market. But like things like co-working spaces, having Wi-Fi, having great community spaces inside and outdoors that people want to use, and how people are using spaces today, and around community and around flexibility and how they're living and working during the day. We are implementing a fairly aggressive network of electric vehicle charging stations through these 4,500 parking spaces that we have. So there are, that's clearly a green thing, but we're doing that, frankly, as a developer, mostly because we want to have a competitive advantage in the marketplace. Because in 4 or 5 years, when EVs become more affordable, and young people like you are going to buy an EV once it becomes affordable, we want to have a competitive advantage, because there's a good chance when you're 27 or 28 years old, you're going to be renting. And we want to be the only people in town that have, a good offering of electric vehicle charging stations as a rental product. So I think when you talk about sustainability and, the government, creates incentives for solar, for EV, and for other, over the course of the years, lots of other, implementing other technology. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really catch on until it becomes practical from an economic standpoint, that the customer sees value in it. So as a builder, as a developer, you have to take a practical approach to these issues.
It's
Anyway,
a business.
it's, anyway.
It is a business.
That's maybe a jaded view of it, but that's
That's a realistic view.
it's a realistic view.
Because trends dictate what a consumer is willing and able to buy.
Yeah.
And until something is conveniently available, affordable, and functionally efficient, you're not going to be able to match the product with the consumer's taste and preferences. And that's something that you constantly have to play with. You're building structures that are adaptable and trendy enough in a trajectory based upon your forecast of where the market is going, where consumers are going. And you have to make sure that that packaging is just right for the market at the right time.
One of the things that we've been doing, over the last couple of years, I read somebody describe it like this: affordability by design, meaning, building, we're building a fair number of studio apartments. I've been, the first, 1,000 apartments I built, we didn't have one studio apartment, over the years. And now all of a sudden, studio apartments and smaller one-bedroom apartments are hot. And it's because they're affordable. And they're the most profitable thing for us too. We get the most rent per square foot. But the fact of the matter is that particularly younger people, the data seems to suggest that they don't want a lot of bells and whistles. They don't want they want to be able to get something. They want their own place. They don't want a roommate, and they'd rather get a studio and pay $1,200 or $1,300 to get a studio apartment than to share a really nice 2-bedroom apartment for $1,900. And so, we're just, we can't build our studio apartments fast enough. Now, the risk that we have is that 10 years from now, is that still going to be the case? I think it will be, only because I think that housing affordability is going to be a long-term problem in this country. And so I think that, you're going to see more affordability by design. You're going to see smaller houses. When he and I were starting, they called them McMansions. Toll Brothers would be building these big houses on small lots. And I think nowadays, the approach of builders, whether you're building houses or apartments, is you want high design, but you don't necessarily need to have big space. You want to be more efficient. You want to be more affordable. You want to be more cost effective.
A lot of people don't want to cut a lot of grass.
That's another problem.
It's really
Yes, truly.
So
Yes.
like, when you commence on a project, like, how much of the thinking is like, okay, so how would this do in today's economy? How much of it is like, how will we do it 10, 20 years from now? Like, do you balance that, or is it like all, like, in the future, or like?
Well, I think, we're a long-term holder. Like we have a long-term vision, so when we build a project, we're thinking about its marketability 10, 20 years from now, because we think we'll probably still own it by then. But you have to have certainly, it's got to be profitable coming right out of the gate. You can't, that's the balance, is trying to understand trends, understand macro demographics. If you're in a high growth area or a growth area like this, that's a good thing. That takes a lot of risk away. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest risks, in terms of if you're a long-term holder, is that what's the population demographic growth like in your marketplace, especially if you're doing residential, or is it an attractive place, for businesses? Like this area actually is pretty good because there's been a lot of job growth. And, at the end of the day, jobs drives housing, right? People move to where they can work. So the Lehigh Valley is a strong market, partially because it's a strong job market. There's been a lot of distribution. There's big distribution business here. There's big healthcare. There's a lot of biotech, medical device businesses, and manufacturing. So it's a strong market.
A quick question I had was, you talked about money and debt and capital. How, when it comes to play as, an entrepreneur, how much of your own money are you using, and how much money are you acquiring from the town, state that you're dealing with?
Right. Leverage.
Well, I think every project's different. I think when you start out, I think if you deal with banks, we deal with the same banker, they want 25% in the deal of the deal in it.
I want some of your blood too.
Yeah. We can talk about recourse and non-recourse, and if they have recourse, if things go bad, they'll take every recourse in the world to get what they need. So I think it's a once you become a long-term developer, you have relationships. And I think it's relationships with banks, it's relationships with civil engineers, lawyers. They have a certain comfort level with you. Like M&T Bank, who we both deal with, I was talking to them just 2 or 3 days ago. I said, what would you like, if you're a young developer coming out, what would you tell them about financing? And he goes, I would tell them not to come to me because I'm so big that I want track records. But I would go to a community bank, a local bank, and set up a relationship, and they may have more flexibility to work with you. So a lot of, when you say how much money you have to put in the deal and what you have to do, it's a comfort level that finance, it could be private money, right? It could be family money. It could be, there's a lot of people who don't want to put all their money in the stock market, and they want to be in real estate. And I think what JB said, like when you're looking for qualities of somebody, if you have an interest, as my brother said, if you want to work 8 to 5, you're not in the real estate world. You're not a real estate developer if you think it's 8 to 5. It's not like that. But
It's 24/7.
yeah, and then there's also, and maybe JB does more with grant monies, but there's state, local monies that you can obtain depending on if you're building in certain areas that you can obtain some money that way.
But like, like as a general rule, if you're building, say, an apartment building or a store or an office, generally a third of the money, the cost of the project is usually equity. So that's investors' money. It could, owner investor money, and then usually 2/3 or so would come from a bank. And that's kind of like a general rule of thumb. So, so we're putting our own money in every deal that we do. And then often standing behind the bank debt, because the question of the debt, the word recourse versus non-recourse. So in real estate, a mortgage is a loan that is secured by real estate. That's what a mortgage is. Okay, so if you go and get a car loan, that's a car loan. You get a mortgage on a house, you buy a house, you get a mortgage. What that means is that you have a loan that uses your house as collateral. That's what a mortgage is. It's using real estate as collateral. And so if I'm building an apartment building that costs $1 million, and I put a third of the money in as cash, as equity, and then 2/3 of the $1 million I get a loan for, secured by a lien on the property, meaning that if I default on the mortgage, the loan, the bank could basically take over the property. So that's their security. And that's why they want us to have a third of our cash in there, because if the value, we're not going to walk away from all that cash, that equity. So what Scott was talking about recourse was that in some cases what you try to do with a bank is you say, okay, we're going to get a mortgage loan for 2/3, and if we default on that loan, you can take the property, but you can't come back to us to get paid. That's recourse.
Right.
That's recourse. If they require us to guarantee it so that the loan is recourse to us, then that just is more risk. Banks like to have the developers guarantee the loans, and developers don't want to guarantee the loans. So that's always the conversation. But that's kind of how that works.
In the interest of time, we're going to wrap things up, but what we're going to be doing throughout the academic year, maybe one more speaker series before the end of this semester, and in the spring we're going to have a series throughout the semester, is to delve a little deeper into some of these areas. Today's presentation is a general introduction to the risk and opportunity in real estate. A subsequent series will specifically target questions like financing real estate, the entitlements, rules and regulations that you need, tax abatement, public-private partnerships as a way of packaging the deal, and also the accounting and the financial cash flow analysis, all the things you need to actually understand the industry is going to be part of what the Dyer Center mentoring program is going to be doing. So this is an introduction, but before we let this beautiful gentleman go away, what advice, as a closing comment, will you give to the students who are passionate about real estate and want to get into the business and want to learn from you and your experience? What's your concluding statement and advice to them?
Real estate, I think we spoke about real estate is such a far-ranging world, and you can be a mortgage broker, you can be a real estate agent. I have 6 or 7 nephews, nieces, future son-in-laws are in real estate. And they work for companies as diverse as Toll Brothers, Marcus Millichap, JLL. These are all pretty established companies. Core Development Corp in New York City. And my conversations with them, and I love it. We get together for a family event and we talk real estate. And I think their perspective is, if you can work for a real estate developer, Todd's son is working for a real estate developer in New York, and he's learning all aspects of the business. So I would take advantage of, if you have the ability to work as an externship, internship, and just learn from a real estate developer. You can work for a large corporation. You can work for a small company. But I think what we said, you heard today, there's a passion. If you have a passion and you show that, you're going to find a place in real estate because there's a lot of avenues for it.
Well, when I was at Lafayette, I had no idea I'd ever be in the real estate industry. You know, I got a job as an accountant, and then I ended up getting exposed to real estate industry through that job. So, you know, I would just say that you know, I think you should just have a very broad, broad awareness. The best advice I could give you is to try to develop some just general awareness of the industry and what those different interdisciplinary connections are to that industry, and as you explore that, you may find that there's something that's of interest to you. I think that's what I think we're trying to do here at the Dyer Center, frankly, is to create an opportunity for you to explore the industry and understand it a little bit and see if there's something in there that sparks you. Don't get stressed out about, well, am I going to be in the industry, real estate industry. There's probably a good chance a lot of you are going to do something related to real estate or related to healthcare or related, when you look at the big industries in this country, real estate's one of them. So I would just, try to get as many experiences as you can and see where your passion leads you.
Well, thank you very much for an evening of conversation and exploration and actually opening our minds and eyes to the possibilities. It isn't always risky, even though there's risk, but it's also always opportunity. And the opportunity to explore career opportunities in real estate, irrespective of where you're coming from, is basically the opportunity we're providing for you here. As I pointed out, we're going to be doing these series over time. Want you to be passionate about it, to learn and acquire that core competence, awareness and understanding of the industry, because those opportunities can come from any angle. You don't want to be when the opportunity comes. So a big hand of applause to our there's always a networking opportunity to get to know our speakers. As we pointed out, these are alums, and their interest in your development and your growth is way beyond anything you can imagine. So when we have speakers come around like this, opportunity also to get to know them as well. I'm sure you'll hang around for about 5-10 minutes to talk to the students. Thank you very much.
Thank you.